him a shot of adrenaline. And I just innately knew that this is not doing a kid good to get these shots all the time. So, looking for help, I had a friend of mine, Nelson Sandy. I'll get back to this. You'll see how it intertwines. Nelson Sandy was a friend. He was a singer, and he was also a partner of mine, and we had a sales business. Nelson is the guy that said to me, I used to be a doctor, but I lost my patience. All right. There's a classic statement. He also said this. We're working at a club in Greenwood Lakes, New York. We got off the stage, and the guy came over and said, Nelson, you're a great singer. Can I buy you a drink? He says, no, but can I have the money? So he was always quick to the uptake. Now,
he's getting them in.
Now, Nelson said to me one day, Ron, how would you like to make an extra $100,000 this year? I says, are you kidding me? Of course I would. Excuse me. So he introduced me to a multi-level marketing called Holiday Magic. I don't know if that rings a bell to any of you, because that's probably even before you were born. You know how these schemes go, like Amway, it's different levels. You have to buy in. And
pyramid scheme?
The only people that make... Go on.
A pyramid scheme?
Yeah, pyramid scheme. Anyway, I got introduced to it, and I thought, you know what? This may work. Let me try it out. So I tried it out. And one day, we're holding an opportunity meeting, and a guy standing next to me, a girl standing next to me is talking to a guy, and I'm talking to another person. And this guy, his name was Mike Hess. He said to Kathy, and I'm a Scientologist. So I said to my person I was talking to, excuse me, I says, what is that? I pinned him down, and I made him tell me about Scientology for 30 minutes straight. And I'll tell you, it intrigued me. And he said to me, look, I can tell you what to do. If you ever get a headache, you never have to take another aspirin again. And I says, well, I don't have a headache now. He says, okay. He told me what to do. And about 3 days later, I'm driving my car on Route 295 in New Jersey. I have a headache. I tried this. It went away. I described this in the book, by the way. I tell you what the process was. Now, I'm hooked. So now I meet a guy in South Jersey named Frank Ogle. He has a cafeteria, and every Tuesday or Wednesday, there's a meeting in his cafeteria for people who want to know about Scientology. So I went down there, and I was with him maybe about a month of, like every Tuesday for 4 weeks in a row, and I felt that I had it nailed, and I liked it. I lost interest, but I did get some good out of it in the little time I went down there. So now, I heard about Scientology doing counseling, or actually what is called auditing. Same. You can use the word interchangeably, either auditing or counseling. So now David is having these attacks on a regular basis. And by the way, let me just talk about David for a second. Do you mind?
Sure, no, please.
Listen, he was a lovable kid, I got to tell you. I mean, we had a hell of a good time together, right? He was like a little firecracker. He played Little League football. He was so thin that I had to put a 2.5-pound barbell plate in each pocket of his shorts so he could make the minimum weight to play this peewee football. And he played free safety, and nobody would get away. He could take guys down 20 pounds senior. And this is the type of kid. He had a great sense of humor. I'll give you an example of what he did one time. He was out of school for a week with severe asthma. He goes back to school, and the teacher says, okay, we've been studying about the Third Reich. Now I have to do an exam on it. David says, well, wait a minute. I can't do an exam. I don't even know anything about it. I didn't study it. And the teacher says, well, that's tough. You're going to take an exam. So David says, okay, I'm going to go and talk to the principal. I mean, he had balls. He was little, but he was a little firecracker, all right? So the teacher says, hold it. Look, you can do a verbal exam. Just stand up and give a verbal. So David gets up in front of the room and says, now, the Third Reich, Hitler was short, handsome, but short. The teacher said, sit down. This is the type of shit he would do, all right? That's adult.
Absolutely.
So now, I figured, let me take a shot of David getting some auditing or counseling to help his asthma. So I went down to see Frank Ogle. I took him out of school one day and went in the house where Frank was. And I said, Frank, listen, would you mind giving David some auditing for me? He says, not at all. So he took him in. 45 minutes later, he came out. David is smiling. I says, how did it go, kid? He says, Dad, I'm handled. He never had another severe asthmatic attack during his kidhood. He had some attacks, but they were mild. That was kind of an epiphany for me. And I thought, I got to get this for my whole family. It's that good. So that's how I made the decision to get my whole family in. So from that point on, I took my family down to this mission. It was called a mission. It wasn't a regular, what they call organizations. We can get into this structure later. And I got everybody on course, and my wife and I got auditing. And that's how I got started in Scientology. And I'll tell you this, David, what changed him was power. Because he has done despicable things, and there's no two ways about it. But again, he was not that way to begin with. There's a British gentleman named Lord Acton, who lived about 1834 to the early 1900s. He's the one that said, power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And this is what's happened to David. He went from Dr. Jekyll into Mr. Hyde. And we can get into that as we go along, but there's a short version of how I got in Scientology. And from that point, I mean, we were so interested, I actually, in 1972, packed up everything, sold my house. I had 3 cars. I had a Thunderbird, a Jaguar, and a push-button Dodge station wagon. Sold everything, took my whole family to England to study Scientology. And we were there for a year and 3 months. Came back to the States for about 4 months, went back over. And this time I went into London. I did a sample recording, and I got a recording deal with Polydor Records and a writer's contract with Chappell's Publishing. BBC heard the album that I did and wanted me to play on the air. And so it was a very successful trip. So there's Excellent. A little thumbnail sketch of how I got started.
Sure.
And by the way, just hang on. Sure. On my website, therealronmiscavige.com, if you go to media and music and open that up, I digitize the album and you can hear it, or if you want to buy it, I mean, it's like, I think $9, and it's called Timeless. But that is the album that I did in 1974.
That's excellent.
Go on, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. That was, there's so many different, my mind's going in 9 different directions right now on which is the best direction to go in. But I think if we keep moving linear, it would be better for the story as a general. But I do want to come back to the relationship with your son, because watching you there for just a second ago, you can tell there's still that, that love for your son. And I gotta be honest with you, it's kind of heartbreaking to know what the outcome is now, and you looking back fondly like that. I mean, that's just hard to watch almost.
It is heartbreaking, and I'll tell you this. Look, when you have somebody that you bring into this life between you and another woman, you produce a body. And of course, I believe man is a spiritual being. That's my own personal belief. Whatever you want to believe, that's fine. But Here I see this kid as a little baby, and all the fun that I had with him, and the love that he had for me. I mean, like I had 4 kids. I taught all of them to swim when they're 3 years old, and they could dive off a 3-meter board when they were 4 years old. That was like the hallmark. They had to do that. Any project I did around the house, they all chipped in and did. Like one time we painted the kitchen, and I painted it yellow with brown trim. And this is about 10 o'clock at night. And I look at it and I said to the kids, what do you think? And I said, it looks like shit, doesn't it? Yeah. So I went to the paint store, bought them before they closed. I got white paint with a couple drops of Delft blue and some Delft blue trim. And we painted it and with the blue trim, and it looked like $1 million. And we were done. I went to the shop where they had Delaware crabs, and I got some beer and some soda, and we all had a good time just chomping down on the crabs. And this is the times we had together. So now to lose that, like I've lost my family. David had my family disconnect from me. My daughters, Denise and Lori, my grandchildren, great-grandchildren, I don't even know how many I have. Nobody talks to me. My son Ronnie does, and my grandchildren Jenna. Jenna's out in San Diego area. Her and her husband and her kids, because they left the church, and my son Ronnie. But the rest of them, they're gone.
That's heartbreaking. That's heartbreaking.
It is hard. That's no bull. It is.
What was the? Go ahead, Casey.
That's common within Scientology, right? The whole family disconnection and alienation if you leave.
Yeah, they consider anything that you would do, like if you were to speak up against Scientology, like I'm doing in the air, you're declared a suppressive person, and all your friends, your family, anybody connected who is still in Scientology severs all ties with you. You're done. As an example, when I got out, both of my daughters were talking. When I escaped, rather, we can get into that later. Both of my daughters were talking to me. But if they would have kept on talking, Denise's daughter, who's in the Sea organization, would have disconnected from her. Never heard from her again. Lori, who works for a Scientology employer, would have lost her job that day. She'd go into work and say, "Get out of here. You're done." I'll tell you, but it's not a one-off decision. It's their policy. It's the policy that they apply. There you go.
It's just like the Jehovah's Witnesses do the same thing. The shunning aspect of if you choose to leave, they won't let you have anything to do with, your family. It doesn't matter. And to me, I think that's horrible. I mean, that's just a horrendous way to do people.
Yeah, but let me tell you something here. I was raised a Catholic, okay? Mm-hmm. And we had a priest. He was from Poland, and he could understand about half of what you said. So the lines would be long waiting to get in to confess to him, because you'd go in there and you'd give him his sins, and he'd say, "That's a fine. Now say 5 Our Fathers and 5 Hail Marys, and you're forgiven." And you walk out, and I felt, as a kid now, I thought, you know what? I got a fresh start. I'm going to try to be a better kid this week. And that was the end of it. I felt forgiven. In Scientology, there is no forgiveness. You do something like I did, you're never forgiven. They say there's a way to make up the damage where you come back and you have to confess that everything you did was bad, everything you did was wrong, the church was right about everything, and you're a piece of shit. And I'm not about to do that, and most people who leave aren't, because they see through the drapes, the guy pulling levers, like in the Wizard of Oz, and it's bullshit. I mean, they promise you superhuman abilities that have never been delivered in 40 years or 50 years. Look, they talk about clearing the planet, right? You've heard that expression?
I have. Mm-hmm.
They haven't cleared a fucking alley or a cul-de-sac. What do you mean a planet? Come on.
The Thetans, right?
Real.
The attack of the Thetans.
For years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the Monty Python routine. I don't know if you ever saw this. He's the Minister of Housing. He's sitting with his back to you. He's naked, sitting in a chair. And there's an interviewer, and he says, "Now, Minister of Housing, you said you were going to build 100 million billion houses. So far, you've only built one. Are you discouraged?" "Well, not really. I mean, Jesus Christ, man." Now, let me tell you this. The beginning of Scientology it has worth, and that is no kidding. The communication course, if you do that properly and learn the component parts of an actual communication, the anatomy of a communication, and you apply this in life, you will do better. You'll be able to handle people better. You'll be able to handle situations better. And there's stuff on interpersonal relationships. But these are the hooks. This is where, as an example, you go in, you do the communication course. You say to yourself, "You know what? This is great. This works," because you've observed that it works by using it in life. You do another little course. You know, this works too. You do maybe 3 or 4 courses. This is gaining your confidence, okay? Now, somewhere along the line after that, some datum or some fact, quote unquote, will be introduced.